I've decided to do a creative works project in the form of an online module to show the transformation of my thinking from the beginning of this course to now. Rather than discuss my transformation of my thinking regarding one specific question, I thought I would describe the transformation of my online teaching strategies as a whole. All semester you've heard me reference online learning, as I'm fascinated with the move towards online instruction, especially here at UF. Broadly, I came into this class curious as to how I could teach more effectively online, and specifically, I was hoping to gain a theoretical basis for what classroom techniques I could apply in an online setting and modifications I can make for online environments. So what's changed? At the start of this class, I had no theoretical background for what teaching strategies I employed. I was going off of instinct, but it's hard to gauge how the learners are responding to material in an online course during the class. Based on past experiences and past classroom teaching, I believed experiential learning was essential, but hadn't done much reflecting on how I could incorporate this into an online setting. However, through each of the sections, I reflected on how this applied to online instruction. During the weekly summary, I took note on how each theory applied to online classes and chose an article on the topic that related to online learning. This helped me to develop my own personal guiding theory of online education, which is a combination of many of the theories we've discussed in class. In the beginning of the semester, we learned that the difference between andragogy and pedagogy may be an imperfect distinction, but that it's important to remember that adult learners have different social roles, motivations, and are juggling many responsibilities. This applies to online learning, as online learners are typically adults. I view my role as a facilitator, providing resources to help the learners acquire knowledge. We've discussed in class how online learning requires greater self-regulation than traditional in-person classes. However, self-regulation interacts with many other factors. According to social cognitive theory, motivated learners perform self-regulation, which enhances performance and increases self-efficacy, which then in turn increases motivation. So supporting self-regulation requires that I enhance motivation as much as I can. From a social cognitive perspective, students have goals and observe, judge, and react to their progress towards these goals, and goal setting itself is motivating. The discrepancy between current abilities and goals creates an impetus for change, which interacts with self-efficacy. As an instructor, I can create opportunities for goal setting and self-evaluation to support progress towards goals and simultaneously support self-efficacy. Additionally, focusing on learning goals rather than performance goals can increase motivation. In my course, I've switched the focus from the learning product to the process they use to get there, and I've shifted grading accordingly. There is a focus on improvement, mastery, and understanding content, not simply producing a product or completing an assignment. From an information processing perspective, self-regulation requires that the learners understand the demands of the task and have strategies for completing it. From my end, I can ensure that I communicate the demands of the task effectively and provide faded worked examples to give the learners strategies for completing tasks during each section. This is more of a teacher-directed approach, but this can support learning for less motivated learners. Perceived control gives the learner a sense of agency, and they're more motivated and better able to handle setbacks. This is supported by social cognitive theory, which suggests agency and internal locus of control supports motivation. Therefore, I've incorporated learning control throughout my course to further support the motivation of my students. We also know that attention is important. According to the filter theory, information is either ignored or paid attention to and selected for further processing. To increase attention, therefore, it is to increase the likelihood that information makes it to working memory, and from there we can use strategies to encourage further integration into long-term memory. From a social cognitive perspective, attention is allocated as a function of motivation and self-regulation. But as an instructor, this can be hard to control during a presentation. However, from basic research in neuroscience, we know there are some things we can do to attract the attention of our learners. If you noticed it in this presentation, I've tried to make it more colorful and novel, hence the use of my Bitmoji. I hope this has helped you pay attention. I've also done some research on attention spans, which suggests that we have a limited attention span that is getting even shorter. By keeping presentations short, I can ensure my presentations do not exceed the attention spans of my audience. During the sections on neuroscience and information processing, I also learned that using graphics to illustrate concepts is far superior than using text. The dual channels of working memory allow verbal and visual information to be processed simultaneously, but adding text along with a narrated lesson with graphics can lead to cognitive overload. You can note here that I'm primarily using graphics to illustrate how my thoughts have changed throughout the semester, and I hope it's working to keep you engaged and interested. Many of us have noted the difficulties with having authentic and meaningful discussions in online classes, yet we know that discussions require elaboration, which enhances coding according to information processing theory. Additionally, from a constructivist perspective, social interactions are critical for learning, and we should promote them as much as possible in online settings. While I've been tempted to eliminate discussions from my online courses, all of the learning theories support their use. After much reflection, my new approach for discussions is to give the students a case study or scenario, and the students must discuss their thought process as they solve the problem. This allows students to serve as peer models for each other, which should further enhance learning according to social cognitive theory. Social cognitive theory also tells us that learning can occur through observation and that worked examples provide expert modeling for learners to support problem-solving abilities. I've developed worked examples for the end of all of my modules in my online class, but also utilize discussion boards for peer modeling, as social cognitive theory suggests that peer models can be more effective than expert models in some cases. My thoughts on practice and feedback have also transformed over this semester. I've realized the importance of matching the practice to the learning outcomes and what feedback should look like in each case. Simple forms of learning that involve associations are best suited for selective reinforcement of correct responding during practice. I've modified my course to include many opportunities for practice during lessons that require knowledge acquisition, pulling from behaviorism. Online quizzes and practice problems allow for immediate, automated feedback, so online learning is very well suited for this type of learning. I've made sure to enhance similarity between situations and point out common elements, which is important for transfer when using a behaviorist perspective. However, for more complex sections, I take a more social cognitive view. These sections will rely more heavily on discussions and problem solving, but I must ensure I'm giving timely feedback, as these responses cannot be automated and require more effort on my part. I've also incorporated opportunities for self-evaluation. According to social cognitive theory, teaching self-monitoring techniques can enhance self-regulation. Because online classes require more self-regulation, I believe that this is a way I can make a difference in helping students learn to self-regulate themselves in the course. Self-evaluation journals will be accompanied by a plan of action for the upcoming week. The journals will reflect on how well they were able to stick to the plan that week, ways they can improve and stick to the plan next week better, and potential roadblocks, as well as how they will avoid or mitigate them. As we've noted in class, the students are often harder on themselves, so this opportunity for self-evaluation will likely balance out my positive feedback with some harsher criticisms from the student. At the beginning of the class, I believed experiences were critical for learning, but I didn't know how to apply experiential learning techniques in an online course. Experiential learning theory proposes learning as a cyclical process and that each new experience builds on past experiences. So utilizing the discussion forum to relate a scenario to past experiences is a simple way of creating experiences in an online class. Online courses also offer the ability of simulations and gamification to create experiences beyond what could be done in the classroom. However, this requires active responding during the simulation to keep learners engaged in the process. However, while learning involves experiences, not all experiences result in learning. It is critical to include time for reflection and generalization so learners can continually move through experiential learning cycle. Focusing on moving learners through this cycle, not just focusing on having an experience, was something I learned in this class and that has had a major impact on my course development. I ensure that each experience involves opportunities for reflection and discussion time. Throughout this class, I've developed a personal theory of online teaching and learning that is guiding my instruction. I have realized that e-learning provides opportunities to give immediate feedback and reflected on how I can increase motivation, simulate environments or situations, and how I can support information processing during my online presentations. I've also learned that self-efficacy plays a major role in learning, and strategies to improve self-efficacy and encourage students to feel in control of education are important. I have a question mark here because I don't believe my learning has finished. It's only just begun. However, I now have a solid framework from which to refine my personal teaching philosophy.